Good evening, our Blueprint Explosive Exclusive. I'm Madhavdas G. At 2:30 p.m. today, Bangladesh Prime Minister Hasina fled the Prime Minister's palace after the country's military gave her a 45-minute ultimatum to step down as the Premier. And as per reports, Hasina has resigned from her post and fled with her sister Sheikh Hasina to a quote-unquote safer location. This, remember, after her close aides already fled the country. Shortly after Hasina's exit, both from the country and the prime ministerial post, dramatic visuals from Bangladesh's capital showed a slew of protesters storming into the Gana Bhavan, which is the Prime Minister's house, and vandalized the statue of even Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, founding father and the first president of Bangladesh. Visuals from inside the Prime Minister's house have shown protesters feasting in Hasina's palace and picking up literally everything they could, including TVs, portraits, statues, so on and so forth. On your screens are also the visuals of the victory march that followed on the streets of Dhaka. This comes after the nation witnessed a massive unrest over the past few months over the issue of quota in government jobs. And as per inputs, at least 100 have been killed as the protests have taken a violent turn. The army chief held a press conference confirming her resignation. He said that an interim government will be formed to run the country, and the country's economy has suffered massively due to these violent protests.
সেখানে আমরা সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়েছি যে একটা ইন্টারিম গভর্নমেন্ট আমরা ফর্ম করব এবং ইন্টারিম গভর্নমেন্টের মাধ্যমে এই দেশের সমস্ত কার্যকলাপ চলবে। আমরা এখন মহামান্য রাষ্ট্রপতির কাছে যাব যে এই ইন্টারিম গভর্নমেন্ট ফর্মের ব্যাপারে ওনার সাথে আলোচনা করে আমরা একটা ইন্টারিম গভর্নমেন্ট ফর্ম করে দেশ পরিচালনা করব। সেনাবাহিনী শান্তি শৃঙ্খলা বজায় রাখার কাজ চালিয়ে যাবে এবং আপনাদের সবার দায়িত্ব, ছাত্রদের দায়িত্ব, রাজনৈতিক নেতৃবৃন্দ এবং রাজনৈতিক কর্মীদের দায়িত্ব হচ্ছে সেনাবাহিনীকে সাহায্য করা। এবং আপনারা মিডিয়ার মাধ্যমে আমাদেরকে এই যে একটু আমাদের সাহায্য করেন, সুতরাং আমরা তাহলে এই পরিস্থিতি নিয়ন্ত্রণ সহজেই নিয়ে আসতে পারব। আপনারা আমার সাথে সহযোগিতা করেন, দয়া করে আর এই ভাঙচুর, হত্যা, মারামারি, সংঘর্ষ এগুলো থেকে বিরত হন। আমি নিশ্চিত যে আপনারা যদি আমার কথা মতো চলেন, আমাদের সাথে যদি একসাথে যদি কাজ করি আমরা, নিঃসন্দেহে আমরা একটা সুন্দর পরিণতির দিকে আমরা অগ্রসর হতে পারব।
And in the latest, we've also learned that Sheikh Hasina has landed at the Hindon Air Base in the NCR region of the National Capital Region amidst security arrangements that have been made. Top sources telling us that armed forces have been tasked with her security and she will be taken to a secure place. Let's quickly, but let me first go across to Captain Alok Bansal, retired director of the India Foundation, who's with us on the broadcast. Also with us, I understand, is Anil Trigunayat. Captain Alok Bansal, let me begin with you. It's a huge development that has taken place, not just in India's neighborhood, but also, of course, from the perspective of India's relations with Bangladesh. Because, as I was just discussing with one of my colleagues, it will be a huge balancing act that India will have to do. At the same time, there are challenges that these developments do have in terms of implications for it from the Indian perspective. Captain Alok Bansal.
See, firstly, it's a very sad moment. Actually, the fall of Sheikh Hasina's government is extremely sad. It's actually sad that I think the Indian missions or Indian agencies did not visualize this sort of a development. But having said that, as of now, we really don't need to balance, because as of now, the army is setting up an interim administration, and there is not likely to be any antagonism as far as Sheikh Hasina is concerned, as far as the regime is concerned. Eventually what happens will depend, because the army chief also, please understand, is an Awami League appointee. He's appointed by Sheikh Hasina. So army is trying to maintain a neutrality. In his address, he talked that he would set up a national interim government. But what is happening in the country is a problem, where Jamaat-e-Islami, which was actually hiding, has come out and is targeting Awami League establishment and Awami League people, and Awami League is in disarray. Unfortunately, Awami League cadres are not able to organize. And it's a very big setback, because eventually if Jamaat and BNP come to power, our relations with Bangladesh are bound to suffer. But tonight is going to be important. Army has asked students and youth to return, and if they succeed in bringing country under order, then you would see a period of army's control where an interim administration will continue. That administration need not necessarily be anti-India or anti the previous regime. So I think as far as we are concerned, we have to make our preferences clear. Sheikh Hasina has been the best bet for India. She has been a very close friend of India. And I think India ought to stand by her in this moment of crisis.
All right, let me quickly bring
the first time. Even when Bangabandhu had died, we had actually provided asylum to both Sheikh Hasina as well as Sheikh Rehana. And at that point of time, the successive regimes were actually inimical to these two individuals. At the moment, it is not so. So I think India can take can stick its neck out.
All right. We're also joined by Sultan Mohammad Zakaria, and I'm just going to come to you, Mr. Trigunath, in a minute. Mr. Zakaria, what really is happening? Is this part of a larger strategy? Is it only domestic interests, political interests that are at play over here? Is there a wider, aspect of outside forces that we see? What exactly is happening? And given the fact that these protests have been on for quite some time now, over 100 people dead, many are looking at what is a potential change that could take place in terms of regime change following this interim army administration.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me, and I would like to thank the viewers. I think if you really listen to the streets of Dhaka, what they are saying, what they are clamoring, some of the analysis or the comments coming out in your show would be a little different. I know India has a big security concerns regarding Bangladesh and etc. But no security concerns should come at the cost of the people of another country. So that's the basics. If it should be a pretty much win-win game for everybody in the game. Anyone thinking that it should be just win-lose or just absolutism, that's gonna hurt both of us. So that's the basics I'd like to say. India is aspiring power, is a aspiring global power, and we all expect it to show more responsibility, more responsible behavior. The way India bankrolled Sheikh Hasina for the last 10 years was very damaging for the bilateral relationship. First of all, a few facts that Sheikh Hasina stole 3 elections. Last 3 elections were sham. No Indian should expect that the Indians' elections should be sham. So why would India defend someone?
Well, sir, it's not any of us. I don't know if any of us are really qualified, but perhaps Anil Trigunath, if you could come in on that. The Indian support of Sheikh Hasina by this panelist, Mr. Sultan Mohammad Zakaria, he says, is a reason for some of the anger there. How true is this statement in your view?
Well, I think one thing I would like to tell my friend, Mr. Zakaria, that India's policy is, when we talk of neighborhood first policy, it is not that we are supporting an individual or others. An individual who happens to be friendlier to you is perfectly fine. That's what is expected of neighbors. But at the same time, India has been supporting Bangladesh consistently ever since 1971, irrespective of the regimes that were there. But at the same time, Sheikh Hasina happens to be there for last 15 years or so, and the relationship has improved, and so has Bangladesh's condition. Today, Bangladesh is far better than Pakistan. And therefore, we see that this will continue. India's policy, we have seen what happened in Sri Lanka. We have seen what happened to Maldives. We have seen what happened in Nepal. So all these places, there have been regimes who have used India for anti-India kind of a propaganda. Just to that, but I don't think, as Captain Bansal said, that we are looking at any immediate provocation or problems that we need to calibrate our policy, because the fundamental policy of India remains that we are going to support our neighbors. Neighbors means the Bangladeshi people, irrespective of this But this is where our interest also lies, in their security and stability. Now,
Right.
naturally, there are to be leaders, so you deal with leaders.
Right, Mr. Thirugunayathan, I'm sorry, I'm just interrupting you because there's an update coming in. I'm just going to come back to you in a minute. And this is the latest. Air India has cancelled all scheduled operations to Dhaka in view of the ongoing law and order situation on ground, as well as, of course, the political turmoil that's taking place. That's the update coming in from Air India. Let me quickly bring in Nikhil on this. Nikhil, very, very significant. We saw a similar sort of update coming in from Air India when it came to Israel, and, of course, the potential fear of an outbreak of continued violence and fighting over there. Now we're looking at Air India cancelling its immediate flights in view of the safety situation to Dhaka. Nikhil.
And Madhav, after the cancellation of the services between India and Bangladesh in context to the railways, now the Air India as well, they have announced that they are going to cancel all the scheduled flight operations to and from Dhaka. But if you go by the details, Indigo and Vistara as well, they fly directly to Dhaka, and there are some of the flights which via Mumbai, they also fly to Dhaka. So we need to see if the Indigo and the Vistara airline also going to follow the suit or not. But so far what we do know and what we can confirm is that the Air India have announced on the social media platform that they are going to cancel all the flights effective immediately starting from today, which are going to be scheduled, which were already scheduled for the Dhaka. And remember, if you allow me with some time, correctly, we are reporting from the Pandara Road area. This is also of one such significance in context to the Sheikh Hasina, because what we have been given to understand, and this is just apart from the information which we have just given, Madhav, what we have been given to understand is that this is the place which is of the utmost importance in concern to the Bangladesh former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, because back in the year 1975 she stayed here for about 6 straight years, and a while back, as we do know, that her plane has already landed in the capital city at the Hindon Air Base.
Yeah.
There is no proper information if she is going to arrive, at least in the latter.
All right, Nikhil, thanks so much for the quick update. Let me quickly bring in Mr. Thirugunayathan. Mr. Thirugunayathan, of course, this is not something that is unfamiliar for Sheikh Hasina, as our reporter was telling us. But the bigger question is this. India is looking at a temporary stay. It's perhaps not going to be a long-haul stay, is what we understand in the current context. What really are the fears and what really are the implications diplomatically if Sheikh Hasina does have an extended stay here in India?
Well, I think that the Bangladeshi people there, they wanted her to go at this stage, and they wanted her resignation, and that has gone on. It was disconcerting the way it happened. But at the same time, she has come to India, and there have been many other leaders. She herself has been given refuge earlier, and there are leaders from Afghanistan and other places who have also stayed in India. So if it comes to that obviously the government will have to consider. But at the same time, I think that my fundamental point is that there is a certain difference that happens whenever leaders change. But it is essentially they have to see what is the larger benefit of the masses, what is in their benefit, what kind of relationship they want with India. Now, we cannot impose ourselves. We cannot tell them what is to be done. It is up to the Bangladeshis to decide what kind of a relationship with India they want. But we have seen that this is the only benign neighbor that they have next to them. So I think that eventually we'll have no diplomatic problem in that sense of the term.
I'm going to request all our guests to stay on with us. We're going to slip into a very quick break. We'll continue with this discussion in just a few moments. Stay tuned.